welcome to a very special episode of Wrestling with the Future. I'm your host, I can be Angelo. Tonight, a very, very special look at the inside. We're going inside the world of independent pro wrestling, and I have a guy with me tonight who was a mainstay, a big dog, if you will, at Imperial Professional Wrestling. In fact, it's called Imperial Wrestling Entertainment. We're going to talk about that terminology, too, because I got a bone to pick with John Campbell about that.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah, it goes. I'm going to start right from the jump, brother. John Campbell, welcome to the show. They call you the Creature Feature. Where did the name come from, my friend?
Just growing up and even now, I'm a huge horror movie fan. I grew up with like the classic Universal monsters, Frankenstein, Wolfman, all of those were like just a mainstay on my TV. And then as, you get older and you kind of progress to a little more, I don't want to say hardcore stuff, but, slasher movies, things like that, just, all throughout my life. Horror movies, horror culture has been a big part of it. And so, why not incorporate that into what I do?
Oh, my God, absolutely. What do you make of this this attempt by certain wrestling federations, I won't mention them, WWE, to try to incorporate a zombie gimmick? What's that all about? Where did that come from?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I had heard the actual story was because since they were on Sci-Fi, they wanted to kind of poke fun at being on Sci-Fi. So they originally wanted to have an alien on there, but Sci-Fi was like, absolutely not. That's our bread and butter. So they on a zombie, I guess. The reason why, I don't know. I didn't think it was as offensive as a lot of people did. I thought it was pretty fun,
Well, I didn't think it was
fun, right?
Well, I didn't think it was offensive. I just thought it was a really shitty idea.
A lot of people, because it was ECW coming back, and a lot of those old ECW fans,
yeah, exactly.
ECW. So, what's one of the first things they see? They see a zombie walk into the ring, and it's like, what the heck is this? This would have never been a thing, But I thought Sandman coming out and doing his thing with them, it was fine, But no, a lot of people were upset about that, if I remember right.
You are one of those guys at Imperial Wrestling Entertainment called a money mover. You're a guy that moves tickets. Yeah. You're a guy that moves tickets. They tell me. One of the
it's a collective, though. I'm not the only one.
Well, they tell me John Creature Feature Campbell is a ticket mover. When you're on the show, people buy tickets.
I appreciate that. That's awfully.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that deep inside you're really a nice guy and not this evil prick that you perceive to be?
Well, here's the thing. Just because I'm a little crazy doesn't mean I'm not a nice man. Sure. It's only when people wrong either myself or people that I care about, like the IWE fans, that's when I turn into a not so nice guy. So,
well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting you say that, John. It's interesting you say that, John, because one of my good friends is Barbara Goodish. She happens to be Mrs. Bruiser Brody.
Absolutely.
And Frank was the same way. But by the way, you bear a striking resemblance. You're a love child between Bruiser Brody and Brody Lee. You look like if
that's one of the best compliments I've ever gotten.
You really do. You bear a very striking resemblance to the Bruiser.
They both had more hair than I do.
And now you look even more like Brody Lee. Here's the thing. Your look, it has a lot to do with your success, because you are visually a throwback to the days of wrestling that I remember. You're a big guy who doesn't do spots. You're not a spot monkey. You're a guy who gets in the ring, pounds on people, leaves the damage in his wake, and gets the hell home.
Yes.
Okay. And I want to talk about that throwback as a comeback, because what I'm seeing, John, and I want you to take as much time as you want to elaborate on it, I'm seeing a lot of that coming back in indie wrestling.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think it's just like anything, once was old is now new again, and everything comes in cycles, so maybe like, not so much these days, but like maybe in the early 2000s, and with the death of ECW, you saw a lot of hardcore promotions and a lot of hardcore wrestling. And now I see that a lot of hardcore wrestling and all that's coming back too. So with that, there's not a whole lot to, you're not running a lot of ropes, you're not flipping. I mean, maybe you are, but for the most part, especially when you get, into a match like that, it's just full bore. And, granted, I don't do those things. I'm not a death match guy. I've been in a couple in my younger days, but I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, just to kind of familiarize you with me and my area here. I live in New Jersey, and New Jersey gave birth to hardcore wrestling. We are the home of CZW. We are the home of the beloved Necro Butcher.
It's Game Changer based out of there. Game Changer.
Yeah, Game Changer. Yep, sure is. The other thing that we are the home of. We are the home of a couple of interesting guys who made quite a name for themselves. Guys like the Necro Butcher, guys like Matt Tremont, who I know that you know.
Yes.
And so that strong hardcore style has been associated, for better or worse, with my beloved state. It's this New Jersey's taking a beating. With regard to wrestling, it's almost like it's expected now. And it's hard to please people and put on a professional quality show, using weed whackers and, saber saws.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think, cause I know Michigan and New Jersey, different crowds, different types of fans. But I think a lot of, especially in the Northeast where the fans seem to be, smarter to the business than say, you always just hear the comparison, Northeast to like, down South Memphis and things like that, where, even if they, don't believe, they want to believe kind of thing. And so, but I think no matter where you're at, if you do it right, there's a market for every type of wrestling out there, like,
and I believe that.
Family-friendly promotion like IWE, for example, a family-friendly promotion can work anywhere if you do it right. You just have to market it the right way. You have to because there's more casual fans than there are smart fans. You know what I mean? When people see a wrestling poster and they see blood and guts and everything, Mr. and Mrs. Walmart, they're not going to want to take like their young kid to that. But
I want to stop you for a second, John, because you said something just now that, boy, you want to talk about a hot button issue. Holy crap. This is a hot button issue. The casual fan versus the smart fan. Okay.
Sure.
On the indies, you are absolutely right. On the indies, it's the casual fan that comes to the show.
Yes.
But in contrast to the big feds, they're all smart marks. Everybody's smart.
You think so? Because
I do.
I see a lot of kids still loving WWE. You know what I mean? And like, those maybe but 5, 6, 7-year-old kids.
They may be too young to be smartened up, or they may not just understand like what they're seeing.
Yeah, well, I know when I was that, because when I fell in love with wrestling, I mean, I must have been like 5 or 6. You know what I mean? I saw it on TV one day, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this?" Because it was superheroes come to life.
There you go. Exactly.
big jacked up dudes wearing tights, throwing each other around. You see this, it's in cartoons, and if you can come back to that in a way, then I think you'd see that crossover appeal, because you can appeal to both if you do it right.
Well,
and entertaining enough product, and if you have good enough wrestlers, but you still toe the line and make sure it's fun for everyone between 8 and 80, there you go. You have the whole market at that point. You don't just have this half, you don't just have this half, you have everybody. And when you have everybody and you have that crossover appeal, then you're successful because you're selling more tickets.
Well, let's talk about that. You tapped into something that I'm very much a believer in, is that everything old is new again.
Yes.
And we're seeing it now in the world of wrestling. Thankfully, after probably the last 5 to 7 years of god-awful product, just horrible product.
But I don't think it was that bad.
I know it was awful.
Yeah, well, but it was awful to you, though. That's the thing. Like, we have to realize pro wrestling's a buffet. You know what I mean? What we like. Hear me out. What we like on this end of the buffet, may not have a same palate as the other half of the buffet.
I agree with you 100%. But here's the problem: they put out the same buffet every day. That's the problem.
That's very true. And I'm not excusing anybody for that. The proof is in the pudding, where, the fans just, the ratings aren't there anymore. But one could argue not many people are watching TV as much.
Exactly.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I think if somebody likes something and I don't like it, I don't necessarily think they're wrong for liking that. It's just not.
Exactly. Well, it's clearly, John, a matter of taste and opinion. But for whatever reason, interestingly enough, organizations like AEW and even to some extent Ring of Honor are growing in numbers, whereas the World Wrestling Entertainment, I'm old. You gotta remember, I'm 62. To me, it's still the World Wrestling Federation.
Sure.
Actually, my mindset is still Worldwide Wrestling Federation, because I go back to those days. I saw my first match live when I was 6 in 1966.
And here's the thing, going back to what we were saying about New York in the 70s, I tell my wife all the time, if they ever invent time travel, boom, that's where I'm going. I want to catch my own show. I want to go to 42nd Street and watch some horror movies and the sleazy grindhouse theaters, and I want to catch a Madison Square Garden show.
Absolutely, brother.
That's my wish list. That's my wish list.
I did all of the above, and I'll tell you something.
I'm jealous.
If you get a travel ticket back in time, you better buy one for me.
I
want to go. Here's the thing.
I have ADD, so let's go back to what we were talking about with Ring of Honor and
and so here's the thing. Those organizations, AEW particularly surprised me. I had great hopes when they came on board as a large company.
Yes.
Certainly somebody that had the money to compete with Vince McMahon. Okay.
Yes.
I had great hopes that they would save wrestling by going back to a purist level. But then Cody Rhodes crushed my dreams and hopes when he said, and I quote, "We're going to cater to a niche audience." And that was the death knell for me. You already pigeonholed yourself, brother.
Yeah, I mean, but I can't argue with it because, it's working for them.
Yeah, but doesn't that kind of like limit your audience? You've got this, you're catering to a niche crew.
But it hasn't thus far. It hasn't thus far. Like, I think AEW is still too young of a company for us to really look at it and think about what kind of an impact we can look at the impact they've made, right now in the very moment.
Right.
But only time will tell what kind of impact they'll make over time.
Yeah. And John, they've been around now for what, 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think so, because they started out just as like, hey, we're gonna run this big event, and you know, once in the big event, they're like, okay, there's something to this, let's figure it out.
Yeah. Well, one a bunch of
I can't ever say not say anything bad, because of course, you know, we all have our opinions and everything like that, sure. But you know, I mean, there's a reason why those guys are where they are, you know, like I can't look down on anybody for, you know, being on TV every week and getting paid and, you know, becoming household names. I certainly don't have action figures in the store. You know what I mean? So like
we could do this for you. We could do this.
I mean, you know, if somebody out there wants to make a John Campbell action figure and get those in Walmart somehow, you know, that's I always told my mom one day she'll have an action figure of me, and that hasn't happened yet. So I need to get on that.
There's hope for you, kid, closer than you think. Here's the thing. Let's talk about the state of indies. We have a country now that's booming again. People are spending money. People are going out. They're choosing various forms of entertainment. Let's clarify some semantics. Are you a wrestler or are you a sports entertainer? And define for me, in your opinion, what the difference is.
Okay. I am, by definition, a wrestler, but you could say my style is more of a sports entertainment style, if that makes sense. Now, granted,
it does make sense to me, and
well, let me elaborate.
Sure, please do. Sure, absolutely.
I can go out there and trade, you know, arm bars and wrist locks and mat wrestle. I can do all of that. I can, you know, work. I can work basically any style except high flying. I'm like 6'5" and, you know, pushing like 280. So, you know, you're not going to be seeing, you know, 450s from me, but that doesn't mean I can't work with somebody like that, or I can't work with somebody, you know, who does have a mat-based style, or, you know what I mean? Or I can work comedy. You know, I can do anything of those and still be all right. But what I remember the most about me is I come out to the ring like a lunatic, yelling and screaming. My manager is a Halloween Frankenbucket that I take candy out of and throw to the kids. Now, what are people going to remember? Are they going to remember that ankle lock that I did? You know, maybe like the purists, you know, might. But I guarantee 90% of that audience are going to remember, oh, that's that crazy guy who comes out to the ring and talks to a Halloween bucket as his manager. You know what I mean? So, like,
absolutely.
I think you have to have, you know, every wrestler has something about them that's memorable. And so if you can get those things that make you memorable, you know, the other things are just icing on the cake.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what you did.
I can't interrupt, but Superstar Billy Graham was the best example of this.
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura may have been a second. As far as actual pure wrestlers go, maybe not the best, but what are they remembered for?
Oh, they're remembered for
their flamboyancy. Oh, they're remembered for the promos. They're remembered for how they look. They look like something. You know what I mean? So
they look like wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, not just wrestlers. You know, you see Superstar Billy Graham in his heyday. You see Jesse Ventura in his heyday.
Oh,
they walk into the room. Even if you don't watch wrestling, you've never seen it before, as soon as they walk into the room, you know there's
somebody. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They have the it factor. Well, you know,
so like,
Jesse and
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a Jesse and Superstar. You know, were both cut from granite. They were, you know, big bodybuilder guys. And before Superstar, you never saw the bodybuilder physique in wrestling. No. That was his calling card. Your calling card is a green Halloween bucket.
And what they wore and everything too, it just added to it all. They stood out in a crowd.
Yeah, well, you never saw anybody come to the ring wearing tie-dye back in the day. This was all Superstar Graham, and Jesse stole it, Hulk Hogan stole it, Scott Steiner stole it. They all took from the guy.
Yeah.
If you're going to steal from the best. Let's be honest about it.
If you steal from one person, it's stealing. If you steal from many, it's research.
Exactly. I heard Jim Cornette say that.
Yes, I think that's where I heard it from too.
There you go. There's a really good picture. I'll share with you a picture of me and Jimmy. Yeah, because I know I'm the only guy who probably could bridge the gap between Jim Cornette and Vince Russo because I know them both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big gap to bridge too, my friend.
Kenny Bolin too. And Kenny Bolin. Here's the thing. You have an interesting calling card. It's a green Halloween bucket. What people remember is not what people remember. It's what the kids remember.
Sure.
It's the kids that bring mom and dad back.
Yeah, I was going to say their parents too, because there have been a couple of times where I've had to talk to parents, hey, can you talk to my kid? He's throwing candy around the house, little things like that. And so, and the parents will appreciate that too. And again, going back to the indies, that's kind of something you don't see like in, the big leagues. A parent can't come up to say a Chris Jericho or a John Cena and be like, hey, come here. We have to have a talk about my kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
well, John, let me ask you a question. How do we ground ourselves again as a wrestling community? I'm watching guys today, really talented guys, young, for the most part, unknown guys, trying to build their career and make a name for themselves. But what I'm seeing is disturbing in some regard, because I'm already seeing some unknown people with incredibly large egos. Now, we know that wrestling is an ego-driven business. It's always been.
Sure.
But there also has to remain some level of humility. Okay? And I'm not seeing that.
And I don't understand it either. I mean, to me, just me being me and who I am, I tell people all the time, yeah, I'm a pro wrestler and pro wrestling's cool. And it's one of the, besides my wife and my mom's most important things in my life, you know what I mean? But it's not all who I am. Wrestling's what I do. It's not who we are. We're not, for the most part, and I hate to, if anybody's watching this, I'm sorry for killing your dreams, but nine times out of 10, who we portray isn't, 100% who we actually are. Sure. I love horror movies and stuff like that, but if I went around, Walmart big booting people, I'd go to prison,
Exactly.
And so,
exactly.
I think people sometimes, especially people just getting into the business, hey, we're all guilty of it. I was guilty of it. I have a story about this too that I can follow up with. But I think at a certain point, we're not used to having all eyes on us, and it's really up to the individual. Okay, I know this, this is pro wrestling and everything, and but now all these people are looking at me in a different way. And it's all dependent on how one person handles those situations. And some people can let that go to their heads, and other people can, just say, hey, it's really cool that you dig what I'm doing, and, thank you, and be humble about it, and I wasn't always this way. I remember one time I got, I don't want to say fired, because you can't really get fired in indie wrestling, but okay, I was a heel. I was beating up this baby face, and this girl in the front row, teenage girl, just starts screaming at me and spits her gum at me. And so me thinking I'm untouchable, I'm this guy, you know what I mean? Because at the time, I was maybe about a year in, green as grass, but hey, I knew everything, right? I'm a heel, right? I pick up the same gum, I put it in my mouth, I spit it back in her face, and I call her like one of the most, something you should never call a woman.
I got you.
Anyway, so during that match, her and her family get up and they leave. And I'm thinking like, I'm going through the match and everything like that. And I get back to the locker room and the promoter's like, grab your stuff, you're done. You're never working here again. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was just being a heel. And he's like, no. I think there was like 6 of them total, 5, 6. Mm-hmm. Those 5 or 6 people are never going to come back here. So you not only took money out of my pocket, you took money out of the boys' pocket tonight by doing what you did. And that, and ever since then, I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm not this character.
Yeah.
This character is just something I portray.
Well, let's talk about that kayfabe.
And that really humbled me. Like ever since then, I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to let this business get to my head.
Yeah.
Yes, I will celebrate my accomplishments. I will celebrate the accomplishments of my friends, because I believe if one of us succeed, all of us succeed. But ever since then, it was like, nope.
I wish more independent wrestlers had that mindset. I really do. But what you did, whether you know it or not, was, again, a throwback to the days of my youth, kayfabe. There was a time a heel was a heel 24/7, or at least perceived 24/7. Yes. Every time Bulldog Brower was seen in public, he was the crazy Bulldog Brower.
Yes.
As soon as he got in his car, he became Richard again.
Yeah. And I think a lot of guys, going back to what we were talking about, don't have the ability to turn that off.
There was a guy very much that way. The guy his name was Roddy Piper. Roddy was that kind of guy.
God,
Roddy got to the point where psychologically it affected him so much he didn't know Roderick Toombs from Roddy Piper. And he became Roddy Piper.
Nicest man, though. Oh man,
I agree. Yeah. A hell of a nice guy, a generous guy, but it took a real serious toll on his psyche and his mentality.
Yeah,
so much to the point that I believe that's part of what killed him. To be honest with you,
it very well could have been. I mean, I could. All right, I was very fortunate to meet Roddy Piper. It was back in like 2010 or 11, I think. I was on this show in Wisconsin, and he was there doing a Piper's Pit thing. And I wasn't even on the show. I just kind of weaseled my way in to help out. So
right,
all you gosh, I sound like a veteran now. All you young kids out there, remember, I drove all the way to Wisconsin just so I could help out on this show from Michigan. But anyway, so I got a chance to like meet Roddy Piper and like pick his brain. Like I went up to him and I'm like, hello, I just want to say like you were my hero growing up, because he's my favorite wrestler, probably still is to this day. Right. And he was like, when you spoke to him, you were the most important person in the world at that moment. He told me to sit down. He's like, sit down. He had like an assistant with him. He's like, I forget his name, go grab us some coffee. I want to hear about your career. Everybody knows about my career. He wanted to hear about what I was doing. Roddy Piper wanted to hear about what, and to me, I think back to that day. Anytime I hear about like an independent wrestler, just being a jerk to like fans, or just being a jerk in general, not like in character, of course, but like, hey, he won't sign an autograph, after the show, or, he was, just little things like that. And it's like, what are you doing? If Roddy Piper wants to hear about my career, you're nobody. You can sign this kid.
Sure.
What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? And even guys in the leagues, like, I get you don't want your meal to be interrupted or anything if you're with your family, but what's it going to hurt taking a second to sign somebody's stuff and say like, hey, I'm signing this, but, hey, I'm with my family, so can you just, here's your autograph. Can you go back to your table
Sure.
and let's have private time? You know what
Well,
I
that
mean?
actually happened to me. And the guy was very, 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 very generous with his time. Very good to me. Guy named Dr. Death, Steve Williams.
Oh, love Dr. Death.
Dr. Death, I had the fortune of being at a table with Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Jim Ross, Ken Shamrock, and Dory Funk Sr., Dory Funk Jr. Sorry.
Wow,
Dory Funk
very,
Jr.
very
And
good.
it was at the Cauliflower Alley Club, NWA merging of their conventions. Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
I need to go to one.
1999, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and it was an incredible event. As a side note, I smoked a joint with Jim Ross that day and Harley Race. So kudos to Harley, and you could toke, brother. Here's the thing, though. The reason I bring this up, these guys in their time lived and breathed a lifestyle called kayfabe. You don't hear about kayfabe anymore. It's all but forgotten and dead. So the question is, and maybe it's not even a question, but let me ask you. Well, I'll ask you the question: is kayfabe even a thing anymore? Do people even care?
Here's the thing: it is to an extent. Most fans, the majority fans, they know what we do as a show now. There's no going back from that. But at least in my realm of thinking, I don't think we need to reveal how all the magic is done. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, because whether you're a smart fan, a casual fan, either or, most of those people are never going to know what it feels like to take a suit in the ring, or to get body slammed, or to come off the top rope, or to, you know what I mean? They're never going to understand what those things are. So we can still onto those, and we can still treat those things, through selling and different things. We can still do those things to convey, like, oh, hey, my favorite thing in the world is, hey, I know this stuff is what it is.
Yeah.
But that wasn't supposed to happen, was it?
It's funny you say that. I had in
that mentality.
Yeah.
Got him.
It's funny you say that, though. I had a magician on the show, a world famous illusionist named Bobby Borgia. Yes. And Bobby made the comparison from magic to pro wrestling. He said, in both cases, it's an illusion. In both cases, there's a trick to what's being done. And in both cases, everybody wants to know how you did that. And in almost every case, you're never going to tell them. You're never going to give away the secret. That's what kayfabe was. You never gave away the secret. Okay.
Sure. And we don't have to give away those secrets as to, what that feels like or how this is done. You know what I mean? Like, unless you've been in the ring, certain moves and certain, the way things are done,
well, John, isn't the cat out of the bag?
But they're not going to know the mechanics, and they sure aren't going to know what that feels like. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if it's sold right, if it's done right, you can get those fans thinking, ooh, that looked like it hurt.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, I don't think he was supposed to fall that way. That's
a really good segue, John. That's a really, really good segue. Let me have your opinion. You and I spoke before we went on the air.
Yes.
About an organization that's trying to mix shoot fight wrestling with sports entertainment. An organization called Warrior Pro. I should say, in the interest of full disclosure, the owner and CEO of Warrior Pro was my guest last week on this show. Adam Perlow, and Adam he had an interesting kind of thought process. I'm not sure I quite understand it. I'm not quite sure, John, that it's even feasible, but I'm so far removed from what you guys do now. Remember, I'm the old fart in the room, okay? I'm 62. You guys are just kids. So
it's been a long time since I've been called that. So thank you very much. My great beard says otherwise, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You still got a lot less gray than I do, baby. Here's the thing, though. Is it feasible, and can you call it wrestling, or do you have to call it something else?
I mean, people can call it anything, whatever they want. You know what I mean? I can call this book a DVD. That doesn't mean it is. But,
exactly, sure.
But like, I don't know. I don't exactly know who they're trying to cater to, though, because pro wrestling fans, they're going to go to a show and they're going to want to see pro wrestling. MMA fans are going to go to an MMA show and want to see MMA. You know, one usually doesn't coincide with the other. You know what I mean? It'd be like going to a basketball game and hockey is there. You know, it's two, you know, maybe not so completely different things, but two different enough things to where, you know, if one part is turned off and the other part is turned off, then the fans are turned off and they're not going to come, or maybe they'll come just out of curiosity. But you know, the pro wrestling fans aren't going to be entertained most likely, and the MMA fans aren't.
Well, that's a real interesting. That's a real interesting take on it. A really interesting take. I asked Adam last week when he was here, what if you got two guys that can't agree on a finish? Now you're saying it's light full contact. You're saying it's for all intents and.
But the outcome is still predetermined.
Well, no, he's saying no. Here, this is why I want. This is why I need your opinion, because you're a guy that's in the trenches, brother. How do you, if you got two guys who can't agree on the outcome of a shoot fight, is it a shoot fight?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's not a. I mean, maybe the moves and the strikes are shoot, but like because again, if the outcome's not predetermined, then what kind of finish are they working out?
Well, and that's the question I asked him, John.
Yeah,
you exactly went where I went. I said, well, what do they do if you can't agree? He said to me, I'm not making this up. Go back and watch the show. He says to me, they got 15 minutes to figure it out.
Okay. I don't know. I hope I'm hoping, and God bless them. I never want to see anybody do bad. You know, just because you don't.
I don't either.
Because it's like one of those things. I use this expression all the time. Just because I don't want you at my table doesn't mean I want you to starve. But I really hope that footage of this gets put out there, because I'm, you know, honestly, like,
it will.
I think it's going to be this mind-blowing experience, but just from talking to you now, I'm curious. You know, so maybe
that's the thing. You went there. Yep, you went there. The curiosity factor. Let's talk about that.
Now,
the curiosity factor in wrestling has always been the in some cases the money maker, in some cases it can kill a promotion. Case in point, let's go way back in the time machine, back to the World Wrestling Federation, Thanksgiving of 1989, I want to say, the gobbledygooker.
Okay. It was 90. It was 90.
Okay. 19. Yeah. Okay. 18. Well, I said 89, right? I was a year off.
You were right there. You're right. I just I remember it was because that was Undertaker's debut.
Okay, so that was the curiosity factor, the gobbledygooker. It took a fart in church, that gimmick.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying the curiosity factor always pays off.
Right,
but
exactly.
Enough curiosity, you'll get somebody to like watch it once,
Sure.
maybe twice if it's, like, whoa, I'm not even sure what I watched. Let me watch that again. Some movies are like, but it's one of those things where it's just, I don't know how the worlds will coexist, but just from talking to you about it now I'm curious. I want to see if they do. I want to see how they do it. You know?
I'm curious too. It's a really interesting concept. I thought to myself, you know what? And it's kind of really, if you think about it, it's kind of how wrestling started. With a bunch of, kind of barrel-chested guys just beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah, but it was
for a lot less money too.
Yeah, but it was still worked though. That's the thing. Like in the carnival days,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but this guy's saying. So I'm just still trying to wrap my head around it. Is it going to be MMA just in a pro wrestling ring, and the guys are wearing wrestling gear?
And I said that to him. I said, if this is going to be full contact, you got to call it something else, because there are leagues like MMA, bare knuckle fighting, King of the Cage.
I just thought of something else too. Do you know what state they're in? Because they might be trying to call it pro wrestling to skirt around MMA regulations.
Okay, here's the thing. They're based out of Tennessee, but the first show takes place in Indiana. So I know the Tennessee
Indiana has regulations. I know Indiana does.
I know Tennessee does not. They're pretty lackadaisical.
Yeah.
In the state of Tennessee.
Indiana has regulations because of all that stuff that happened with like Jim Cornette and Ian Rotten. Or am I thinking of Kentucky? I might be thinking of Kentucky now that you mention it. But I'm pretty sure Indiana, they either have regulations or had regulations. It's been a while since I've wrestled in Indiana.
You're right. It was Kentucky with Cornette. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think
they still have.
But Indiana might have MMA regulations. Like that's the thing too. Like that's why a lot of states, when they do MMA events, they have to call it amateur and they can't do pay. My friend, he's one of my childhood best friends. His name's Brett Spardella. He was one of the best amateur MMA fighters in the whole country. And he's like a top ranked Brazilian jiu-jitsu, guy. I don't know what they're called. A Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he's a coach. But anyway, like I know because he used to run events also, and I know when he ran amateur MMA events, it was really, you really had to like make sure you call these things this certain way. You have to really make sure that these things are done this way. Otherwise, the state would shut your show down. So I'm really curious as to like how that's going to go, because if there's no wrestling, there's probably MMA regulations for sure.
Well, let's talk about wrestling in the state of Michigan, where you're based out of.
Okay.
As far as I know, they still have a commission.
No.
There's no commission anymore. Okay.
No,
when did Michigan dissolve the commission?
I have been wrestling since 2006, and there hasn't been one since.
Oh, wow.
So I really don't know. I
am giving away my age.
No, because that's honestly something I never knew.
Okay, so there's no commission, so it's completely regarded as entertainment or an amusement event.
Yeah, because since you don't need like you don't necessarily need it. Good promotions do, IWE does, but you don't need like a doctor on hand. You don't. In some cases, you don't even need insurance. You can just piggyback off of like the
oh my God.
Yeah, you can piggyback off the venue's insurance.
Wow.
And, good thing
you're blowing my mind with this stuff, brother.
Has all these things, by the way, but so it's pretty lax. It's not looked at as like your traditional sporting events.
Interesting. Wow,
Yeah,
times have changed, have they not?
I
I'll tell you,
guess.
John,
Yeah.
I promoted for 24 years,
Yes.
and I had to carry full liability insurance, and I had to have a bond. I had to have a building waiver. I had to have everybody on my roster sign an injury and death waiver.
Mm-hmm.
Would they still do that? And no, yes.
IWE does.
Okay,
I
okay.
Here's the
Man, I'm
thing.
thinking to myself, how are these guys getting away with it?
I don't know, but I don't. Here's the thing.
Wow.
I haven't necessarily been out of the game, out of like the Michigan indie scene. I still have a lot of friends, but who are in there. But
Yeah.
my time is strictly devoted these days to IWE.
Wow.
And Michigan Wrestling Organization. They're another company out of Flint that I feel does things the right
Yeah.
way.
I
But
have
again,
to tell you,
my
it surprises me. It really does. It surprises me to know, and I learn, I learned something here. It's I didn't expect to learn anything, but hell, man, I learned that the more things change, the more they stay the same.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
back in the day, that's just what they were doing. And that caused everybody to say, hey, you know what? We need insurance and we need this and we need that. Now they're going the stellar opposite end where you don't need anything to run a show now.
Yeah,
Holy
very, very rarely. But again, before I just really devoted my time to those two promotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I do help run IWE.
And what do you do for them, John?
Oh, everything. I
Everything.
well, I don't want to say everything. That does a really big disservice to everybody else. IWE's it's really run like a commune, like I have like a core group of guys, me and my friend Dennis started IWE, and because we were tired of basically just driving hours upon hours upon hours and sitting in locker rooms with people we didn't like and and working for people we didn't like. So
Oh,
yeah,
there's
we started
there's a
IWE.
lot of that, brother.
Well, and yeah, it was just one of those things because it is, everybody's had this conversation with their friends. It's like, oh, if I ran a
Sure.
promotion, I would do it this way, or if I ran a promotion, I would do it this way. And finally, we were just like, hey, let's put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like ever since then, I've kind of been persona non grata everywhere else. So I don't necessarily know how things are being
Yeah.
run on the other end.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Saying that, but I know when I was, out there, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, different promotion every weekend. I never ever signed a liability waiver. If I did, maybe
Wow.
if I did, maybe it was one.
Incredible.
Never in the state of Michigan have I ever seen a doctor at wrestling events, which I feel
Oh
is
my God.
very dangerous and very negligent.
Oh.
I was at a show and I saw this kid, his name was Nerdy Nate, snap his leg in half. And of course, no doctor on the scene, but what could a doctor even do with that anyway? Had to get airlifted. But it's just one of those things where I feel like, especially now what we were talking about with like hardcore wrestling and deathmatch wrestling, really
Sure.
survival. I feel like it's only a matter of time before, we hear of an incident where, somebody gets like really, really hurt, and then we're going to have to be forced into regulation, and let's be honest, wrestling regulation, having a doctor on hand is a good thing, but I feel like the promotion should take care of that. But, now we're going to have to start paying for these things and paying, you know what I mean? So like, I think it's a matter of time before, somebody does something, quite frankly stupid, and then we all have to suffer for it.
Well, it's interesting because back in the day, This is how it was back in the 40s and 50s. So I'm a bit of a wrestling historian. Back in the 40s and 50s, wrestling was run just like this. It's kind of like the outlaw. They were called outlaws back in the day, outlaw promotions.
Mm-hmm.
Then the states got together and made every state involve themselves in the sports business, sports commissions, athletic commissions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then all these years, nobody had a problem. All of a sudden now, Vince McMahon comes to New Jersey.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to pay the New Jersey fee.
No.
So how does he get out of it?
We're entertained.
Again, New Jersey was the hotbed of controversy.
Yep.
He says, we're going to call ourselves sports entertainment. We're not professional wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
He had to admit to the commission that what they did was predetermined. He used the dreaded F word, fake.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we are a phony baloney business. We're not a sport. We're entertainment. That got him off the hook financially. But what it did for independent groups around the country was it nailed their death knell.
Mm-hmm.
Because
because who can afford that? You know?
Exactly. You made my point for me. Exactly. So, and I want people to realize, like John and I are telling you, everything old is new again. And what comes around goes around. History repeats itself. And we are seeing the swing end of history repeating itself one more time.
Yeah. And I don't want to
interesting guest, John.
Yeah, and I don't want to come on here and kind of sound like I'm holier than thou or anything like that, because I'm not. Hey, I've done death matches, I've done my fair share of crazy stuff, but it all goes back to this. I just don't want to see anybody, but most of all, people that I like and people that I care about, end up hurt or worse. You know what I mean? And then, not only, is now somebody I care about really hurt because they did something dangerous on a negligent promotion, but now, hey, now we all have to suffer the consequences too. So, I think at some point a line has to be drawn. And again, going back to what we know now about concussions and stuff too, ramifications that we suffer. I had a traumatic brain injury a couple of years ago, and it really messed me up. Like, I speak a lot slower now. Sometimes I have a hard time finding the word is here, but I can't get it from here to here. Things
absolutely.
like that. Yeah, and
look what happened just recently, John.
That messed me up really bad. You're talking about that. Yeah, that messed me up. Like, because somebody said
worked for me. She worked for a show I did. I had that here on my show in Atlantic City, New Jersey, 2001. It happened.
Oh, right. Right.
December. This was a benefit for the 9/11 fund. It was 2001 December. I had Snuka, Tom Brandy, Daphne, Vader, and a host of former WWF stars.
That's awesome.
And a lot of local talent.
Yes.
And I want to tell you something. She's a young woman in her 40s, with that kind of traumatic brain injury to the point where she committed suicide. Brother, there's something has to be done. A friend of mine, I used to be a friend of mine. I want to say this. I got to preface that. He used to be a friend of mine. Big Vito LaGrasso from ECW, from WCW. Vito was a friend of mine. But Vito was so unpredictable mentally because of his, concussion syndrome, CTE.
Yeah.
And CTE, by the way, is what killed Jimmy Snuka. It wasn't stomach cancer.
No, I believe that, because they said he had, he wasn't mentally fit to,
Well,
stand.
and not only that, John, but his wife came on my show and talked about it.
Oh, Carol, yeah.
Yeah, Carol was here with Mrs. Bruiser Brody and Mrs. Wahoo McDaniel. My
Oh,
friend
wow.
Karen McDaniel. I know Karen very well. I know Barb Goodish very well. I know Carol Snooker very well.
Yes.
One of my guys at the Atlantic City show didn't know Carol was with Jimmy and ran down the aisle like a crazy man, like John Campbell does, called himself Slayer. Slayer knocked Carol off of her seat and damn near, yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, because I've been on shows with Jimmy, and you'd always kind of heard rumblings about like those about what happened back in the day and stuff, but
Yeah.
So that really messed me up because when we all met him, the few times we did, the nicest guy.
Yeah.
The nicest guy, and Carol always handled the money, so I got to meet Carol.
Jimmy didn't know how.
Yeah, no, because that's always what Jimmy would say. Oh, Carol handles the money, brother. So yeah, but like, yeah,
Jimmy was real bad with money, and I said it as.
That's what messes with me because I'm thinking to myself, I've had, concussions, every wrestler has. And then I had that really bad one a few years ago. And whenever I hear something like that, it just really, it messes with me. It's like, am I going to end up like that? And I have no problem.
What you did for yourself was a good thing. What you did for yourself was a really, really good thing. Stepping away from the bulk of pro wrestling activity and relegating yourself to kind of the office personnel, the creative.
Well, I still work though. Like
I'm not saying you're not.
Yeah. No, I still get in there and rumble, baby.
But it's a lot safer in the office, John.
It's a lot
safer in the sometimes.
Yeah, you want to talk about guys not cooperating on a finish.
Well, let's talk about that. Have you ever had to negotiate a finish for two guys that just couldn't agree on it?
Yep. many times.
Yeah. It's not fun, is it?
No, it's really not. And you don't want to like upset these people because they are your friends, but at the same time you just want to grab them and be like, this isn't real. You're not really. It's
right. And the other thing is,
other
thing that they have to.
I don't know. I don't get it.
The other thing they have to be reminded of all the time is it's not for you. It's for them.
Yeah, exactly. For the paying customer. You know what I mean? Like we're not going out there and having matches, for ourselves, we're doing this because we have fun and we love it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we want to make them happy, because they're the ones who are buying the tickets. They're the ones who are buying the t-shirts. They're the ones who, come here and make this a thing. Otherwise, it'd be like how we did during COVID where, we were working in an empty building and just doing a closed set shoot.
Sure.
So it is. It's one of those things. It's like, guys, it's work, and I try to lead by example, like I barely win, or when I do, it's, it's whatever, but it is. It's one of those things. It's like, I'm not going to put myself over all the time, but it's like that. So if why
not, John? Dusty Rhodes made a career out of it.
I've been told if I was more selfish, I would have gotten a lot further. But it is. It's one of those things. Like I just don't get it. I don't get it where guys, don't want to lose or anything like that. And it's like,
don't remember something, brother. It's all the work. It's all the work.
Yeah.
Listen, John, we got a couple of minutes left. I want you to because I'm going to bring you back for. You're going to come back here a lot. Trust me. I'm going to bring you back again, but we're hitting that magic hour here. And I want you to give your social media. Where can people reach you? How can they book you? Where can they see your work? get all that out of the way, and then and we'll invite everybody to come back next week.
I have Facebook. You can catch me on there. Just type in Creature Feature John Campbell. There's a like page, and then there's like my actual page. I barely update the like page, so just come to my actual page, shoot me a friend request, or just hit follow. You know what I mean? That's fine. You know, I'm on Instagram. My Facebook, by the way, if you want to type it out, it's facebook.com/CF John JOHNC. So Creature Feature John Campbell, CF John C. And then I'm on Instagram as Creature Campbell. I have a Twitter, but don't even bother following that because I never update that.
Either do we.
And then you can catch Imperial Wrestling Entertainment at iwegladiators.com. We really appreciate your support. Even if you're not in Michigan, hey, check it out. We have Battle Zone TV on YouTube. Sure. All the links for the IWE social medias, that's on iwegladiators.com. Right. Check out Michigan Wrestling Organization, MWOonline.net. I work there a lot. They're still kind of, trying to figure it out post-COVID and everything like that. Yeah. So they're doing shows sporadically here and there when they can. But check them out definitely. And thank you for having me on. It was a great experience.
You are quite welcome, brother. You're definitely going to come back here again. I want to tell everybody it's Creature Feature John Campbell. You can catch him on Facebook. He's a real easy guy to find. Don't let the menacing look for you. He's a sweetheart, okay? I'm gonna ruin the persona. He's a sweetheart. John's a great guy.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week. We have a super special guest next week. Check the Facebook on Friday to find out who. That's tomorrow. Check it out Friday to find out who. We got a former WWE star, a legend, in fact. A Hall of Famer will be with us next week, and just to give it a sneak peek on our group, Wrestling with the Future Podcast. It's a private. Well, I'm sorry, it's not a private. It's a public group. You can all check it out. Find out who our guest is going to be. It's going to be a good one. You're going to like it. And next week, Bobby C will be back. Beautiful Bobby C will be my co-host, and we'll have a lot of fun. For John C, Creature Feature Campbell, I'm Psychic Michelangelo. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time as we all wrestle with the future.